What is up? It's good to be back. I'm here today to talk to you about how you can reach your social justice, Black Lives Matter warriors out on the streets, whether it's at a protest, whether it's at a march, I don't care, you name it. If it's social justice, I want to share with you the ways that I've found it to be successful, to be able to speak to them, reach them, actually have a dialogue with them that lasts longer than a 5-minute screaming match. I think this is critical for our day and where it's going to be needed to know how to get out there and actually speak to these people in a meaningful, biblical way. And so I'm really excited to be shooting this video today because I really do pray that it impacts you. If you're watching this and you're a Christian, it impacts you to feel like empowered to actually go speak to these people and actually present the gospel of Jesus Christ and Him crucified. And so let's just begin right now. I'm so excited to get diving into this. So number one, I've actually done some protests before. I've gone to a climate change protest. You can actually see that in the previous videos in my channel. I went and spoke with them about climate change, and yes, it did get to Jesus Christ. We did speak about Jesus in the midst of a climate change protest. And that was almost about a year ago, maybe less than a year ago, but it was so great and it was so amazing and so easy. I think what we as Christians can't do is say, oh, I can't believe these people are out there doing this or that, obviously unless something is illegal going down. But I think we as Christians can actually look at that and say, oh, amazing opportunity. And I hope and pray that's how you view this as you are watching this video. Or maybe you just have some friends that are in this train and you want to be equipped to have some quick tools to speak with them. I'm by no means an expert in this field, so you can just dismiss me at that point. I am a person who just wishes to share Jesus, Him crucified, what that means for us, His substitutionary atonement on our behalf. I am a person who wants to be obedient to God and to Yahweh as He's revealed in scriptures, in the holy text and the Bible. And so if that's not interesting to you, feel free to click away right now because that's going to be the dominating factor in this video. So this Saturday, I'm actually going to be putting what I'm saying into practice. So I'm actually this Saturday going to a march in my local area, and I'm going to bring my camera, I'm going to set up a tripod, we're going to have some interviews, I'm going to be uploading videos once again about me, what we're doing on the street. And so I'm really excited to start diving into that. That being said, what am I gonna do when I get there? Well, first and foremost, I'm gonna be going with a group. I think it's imperative that we go with people, go with Christians, go with believers that are there to support you, that are there to pray with you and actually do the work alongside you. I find that my boldness and motivation when preaching the gospel on the street is tenfold more just emboldened when I actually go with another person, or even more so 4 or 5 people. And so this Saturday, I'm actually going with a few people. I think that's wise. I don't think you should necessarily go alone. If you are feeling called to, of course, do it. Be biblical and just follow your convictions. But I think there is a precedent for being smart when you go to an activity that's not for you. It's not necessarily for you to go preach the gospel at it. People are actually, some Christians even are saying, hey, don't do that. That's just pointless, whatever. I think it just takes an incredible amount of discernment. And so that's what I really wanted to be stressing when I first get there, is that I want you to go with a group, and I need you all, if you are going to go and share Jesus and share Christ to the Black Lives Matter crowd, or any social justice crowd, that you go maybe an hour before the event. Go an hour before the event and bathe it in a ton of prayer. Like, if you've prayed a lot before you go out, that's not enough. Go out there, do it again. Plead, beg God to go before you and do something, because without the Spirit's power in your life, what you're going out there to do pointless, meaningless. It's not gonna go anywhere. You should give up now. Like, if you're not going on the Spirit's power before you, then you should not be out there on the streets trying to talk about Jesus. Because one, the flesh is a very evil thing. It's going to pull you in directions, selfish directions, angry directions, and especially if you're prone to conflict or you really enjoy conflict, this can be dangerous territory for you. So I would definitely recommend pull back a little bit and evaluate and bathe the time in prayer. So what I'm doing, I'm praying throughout this whole week before I go out, and on Saturday. And then on Saturday, we're actually gonna meet as a group an hour before at the location of the march. And then we're gonna just continue to pray. I'm gonna set up my gear and I'm going to, we're just gonna pray and pray that God would open eyes, open hearts, that He would direct our steps, that we'd be humble and yet bold, meek and kind and gentle, yet proclaiming with conviction. And so that's what we're gonna be asking. That's what we're gonna be asking of our group while we're out there. And so I think that's number one, bathe it in prayer, or two, I guess that's the second one. One, go with a group. Two, bathe it in prayer. Number three, as people start arriving, I'm really hopeful I'm gonna start some conversations early on as people start just kind of slowly getting it all together. And then once people start coming in, I'll be seeing if anyone's interested in an interview. If not, all good. But I'm gonna just start asking people, hey, are you interested in doing an interview? We're a Christian group. We're just here to ask questions. We're not here to create conflict. Predominantly, I want to start on that level. I don't really want to go any further than that at this point. And so that would be my recommendation for you. If you bring a camera, it's a great excuse to start conversations. Fantastic excuse. Last time I went, actually, I had a line of people trying to talk to me because I had a camera and they want their voice to be heard. And there's no other reason they're out there except for that their voice will be heard. So that would be my recommendation, is maybe bring a camera, your iPhone, buy like a mic. There's like cheap $100 ones that plug into your phone. One of my favorite street evangelists that encouraged my heart so much to do this work, Ray Comfort, he uses one. It's $100. It's I can probably link it in the description actually. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It hooks up to iPhones. and it can do computers as well, but check that out. And then bring a camera, bring your iPhone. It creates a great conversation starter. You just say you're doing your individual project or whatever. Start uploading your own videos, encouraging me, encouraging other saints around. So that's going to be kind of the setup. So that's what I'm planning on doing Saturday. So bathing it in prayer, setting up cameras, and then as people arrive and the event actually kicks off, that is when I'm gonna be implementing a strategy. And so here's the strategy. Here's what you all clicked on the video for. Don't click away yet. Unless you're like, oh, this guy's full of nonsense. Hey, if you think that, go ahead and click away. But if you're interested in hearing how I approach this, please continue. How I'm gonna be speaking to these people is pretty stinking simple. And that's what this channel is all about, is how you can approach people, not being any scholar of any type, approach people and lead the conversation to the gospel as quick as you can. It's not gonna be lollygagging. You don't have to develop a 10-year relationship with them and get them to believe what you believe. Nah, you actually get to launch right into the gospel right at the get-go and develop a relationship, maybe even from there. So that is what my channel is all about, and that's what I'm gonna be doing this Saturday. How am I gonna do that? Well, what I'm gonna be encouraging my team to do is number one, look for the fringe, look for the stragglers, look for the people that aren't super involved, are there because they care, but they're not the ones screaming at your face. I don't recommend at least immediately going and trying to address those people. What I recommend is starting out by asking the stragglers around the corner, kind of do your rounds, do your circles as a group, and just pick people off. Have tracts in your hand, biblical tracts that actually present the gospel message in a cohesive way, in a simple to read cohesive way. Start passing them out And especially if you don't have a camera, start passing those out, and oftentimes those launch immediately into a conversation. Just a simple "did you get one of these yet?" works 7 out of 10 times, I would say, in my experience, but at random strangers. Almost always at events, whether it's parades or marches or protests or whatever, people are down to accept whatever. So be encouraged in that. If that's all you want to do, great, hand out gospel tracts, but most likely you're going to get a question such as, "Hey, what did you just hand me? What is this?" And then you can say, "It's a gospel tract. I'm with an organization here to just start conversations. Maybe we don't share the same views. I'd like to have a conversation with you. Do you have a second? Do you have a second?" And then it launches into the conversation from there. So I'll just quickly break down how normally, and keep in mind, this is not a one-size-fits-all conversation, but this is normally how it goes. So I'm gonna be starting the conversation by just simply saying, "Are you a spiritual person?" Now, you might have heard that before if you have seen any of my previous videos. A lot of you, I'm sure, haven't. I'm not that big of a YouTuber. I haven't even been that active on this medium. So I'll just start out with saying, are you a spiritual person? And most often or not, you'll get the response, yes or no, or whatever. If you get a response at all, that is your gateway to launch into the conversation. You just opened the floodgates for an amazing conversation. That is how all my conversations start. Yes, no. If they don't respond, or if they ask you to leave, that's when you get shut down. Accept it, move on. There's someone out there that actually does want to talk to you. Just keep moving on, pressing forward. Don't dwell on it. I know it was hard to go ask that person and you got rejected. Do it again. Do it again, because you're gonna find someone that actually does want to talk to you, and that's been my experience this whole entire time. Especially the last 2 years of my life, it's been really consistent in that regards. And so, yeah, start off with that question and look for the yes or no response. Look for the yes or no response, and then as they respond, respond with, I'm assuming most people are going to respond with somewhat of a yes. Even if it's atheistic, a lot of atheists are spiritual, or they dabble in spiritual things. It might sound like a contradiction, but this is my experience, at least where I am, in the people I've spoken to, this is most common. And so you can just launch in from there. And my next question would be, hey, how does that view, I want to know, how does that view inform why you're here? Simple enough question, right? How do your spiritual views actually inform why you are here? And they'll give you a response. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Everyone's going to be different. Everyone you meet is going to be different in this regard. So don't be thrown off if it's not like the example I'm giving you right now. This just means you might have a little bit more study to do. Or you can simply be honest, which definitely be honest. Don't pretend like you know something. Be honest and say, I don't know the answer to that. That's a good point. Thank you for bringing that up. I'll have to do some further study on that. That's a really good point. That is an amazing thing to do if you don't know an answer to something, by the way. If you're sharing the gospel and you don't know the answer, give them props. Like, it doesn't mean your faith is completely shattered. You must reject God on the spot. No. What that means is they brought up something you didn't know and you're a human. And there's probably an answer, because I bet you there's thousands of people who asked that question in the past. And you can probably find an answer. Pretty simple. At least in my experience, I've always been like, oh, that's a really good question. And then you go on to Google and you're like, oh, there's 15 articles by 10 PhDs on this subject. Wow, this is a really compelling point. Oh, this PhD has an even more compelling point. Yeah, and then yada, yada, yada. You memorize it, you get to know it, you get to know your Bible a little bit better, you get to know God's heart in it a little bit more clearly. And so don't be thrown off. I actually recommend that you do say, I don't know the answer. That's a really good point. That really does make me question things. I'm gonna go look into that when I get home. But it doesn't end there. Don't think you're defeated here. Don't do that. Don't just be like, I guess I'm done, and then just waltz on out of there. No, what you should do at that point is just ask another question. and I'll show you why. As you ask questions, they're gonna give you their response to why they're there, how their spiritual beliefs may be impacting their view of the situation. Most likely, they're gonna say, some God, or like love your neighbor as yourself, something like that. It might be a truncated version of that. It might be a ripoff of Christianity, and I think that's okay. Let it roll. Let them talk for a little bit. That's how I always address it. You always want to speak. 1 Peter 3:15, speak with gentleness and respect, especially when giving a defense for your faith or an apologia for your faith. And so, speak with gentleness and kindness. Listen to them. Listen to them as they're speaking to you. Don't get upset. Don't make facial expressions like as they're talking. Don't go like, like just listen to them. Be honest, be kind, and just like actually look engaged, because you are engaged. You should care more about them rather than the stuff they're spewing out the side of their mouth. You should be concerned more with the spiritual side of them than what they're going on about, especially in this point. Then after that, that will give you a few key indicators to launch off of. And so you can ask about foundations. See, this is where I'm going with that. You can always ask more questions. You don't have to answer everything under the sun. You don't have to be with an individual, especially on the street, just meeting them. You want to talk about Jesus, you'll be there for hours if you try to address everything they bring up. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't try to address everything they brought up. Maybe take one and let it be for about a 20-second answer. And if they have a response, don't respond back, because you have more questions. You have more questions and you have somewhere to go with this conversation, whether they know it or not. And so keep moving, keep going on in the conversation. And then as you're continuing in the conversation, just keep asking why. What's the foundation for that belief? Where do you find that? How do you know this is the reality of your of truth? Does truth exist in your perspective, or is it just determined by societal convention, or is it just you? Could this just be, I think this is best. I don't know why. I don't really care to know why. I just think this is best. Get them talking in these regards. Keep boiling it down until you hit the rock bottom foundation of their core belief. Because if you keep asking why, what is that doing? It's peeling back the layers on a worldview. Hence the name of the channel, Worldviews In Conflict. It's peeling back the layers of the worldview. You can have a conversation literally about anything and get down to their worldview about how they know, what they know, and why they know it. And so that's where you want to get. So keep asking questions until it sounds something like, hey, I don't really know, or I have a foundation. It's this other sacred text, or my parents brought me up to believe this. I just think it's true in the core of my being. I don't really have a meaningful justification for why I'm saying this, but I just know it's right. And then you can respond with, that's really interesting, and I think I actually can give you a cohesive response to why you believe what you believe. And it actually makes sense, it's coherent in my worldview, and I actually have a justification for why you believe what you believe, but I think it goes a little bit further. Can I explain? And that, my friends, is the opening for the gospel. Because what does the Bible say? It tells you that everyone is suppressing the truth in their own unrighteousness. That's Romans 1. And so everyone has a knowledge of God, but it's suppressed by the truth. It's suppressed by their unrighteousness, by the deeds that they wish to do without God. And so what we can do is presuppose God's truth in the midst of this conversation without taking too long. We can presuppose God's truth and actually say, I think you do know God exists. Yeah, how do I know that? Well, there's an authority there. I'm speaking from an authority that you actually know this. And I think your conscience testifies to this truth because you care. Because you care about Black individuals. They're not just meaningful bags of stardust. They're not just material that's been fizzing in the universe for this time or the other. It's not just bimortal soup that is just going along, time and chance, acting on matter. That's not what you believe in. You actually just proved that to me with what you were saying beforehand. What I'm saying is that is evidencing that you actually do know there's a creator, that he cares about right and wrong, that he cares about people, and people matter because the creator has spoke. Now the question is, how do you know the creator has spoke? Well, I just let them know there's a lot of biblical scholarship if you have any questions on that, but I believe it's axiomatic, it's self-evident. It's like you look into a window to see if a person lives in a house, and look, you see the person living in the house, that means that there's someone living in the house. In the same way, that's how the Bible is. It's axiomatic, it's self-evident, self-proving. I don't actually have to defend truth. Truth stands as a pillar by itself, and you can just kick it and throw things at it all you want, and it's not gonna budge. But that's not the point. What I want to ask now to that individual, especially in like a social justice, Black Lives Matter setting, what I want to ask next is, do you believe in heaven or hell? Justice, ultimately, in the end of all things. Yes or no? If it's a no, you say, if there is a heaven or hell, will you be a just person at the end before a righteous judge, before a good judge? And then the answer is oftentimes, yes, I'm a good person. And that's where my good friend Ray Comfort, I don't actually know him, but my good friend Ray Comfort comes in handy, and you just break it down slowly. Have you ever told a lie? Have you ever stolen? Have you ever looked at a woman with lust? Jesus said that's you committed adultery in your heart. Have you ever hated your brother? That's murder. So if God's gonna be good with me, he has to judge me perfectly, and I am not gonna stand in front of a holy judge and stand justified. I am gonna stand condemned and worthy of imprisonment, worthy of hell. Don't leave him there. Don't leave him there. Because that's where Jesus comes in, lives the perfect life I couldn't, died the death I deserve, resurrected 3 days later, and if I turn my back on my sin, repent of it, and trust in Jesus alone for my salvation, and his righteousness, not my own, in his finished work on the cross, I'm saved. I receive an alien righteousness. I receive the righteousness of Christ imputed upon my life. I am saved. So, that's the gospel. Then you ask them what they think, and you go from there. But your job is to be faithful in administering the gospel. So, go out, go with others, pray with one another, ask why 100 times, and then when you see the image of God poke through their suppression of truth, point it out gently and with respect to that individual, and say, how does that make sense in your worldview? How does that make sense? It makes sense in my worldview. How does that make sense in yours? Preach the gospel. Ask to pray with them afterwards. They might storm off. They might get mad. Jesus promised all of that. Anyway, without going too long, thank you so much for listening. I pray that the Lord be with you in these troubling times. I will be uploading, hopefully, if I actually get some interviews, I'll be uploading here on the channel in just a little over a week. God bless. I'll see you next time. This is Worldviews in Conflict. We're bringing worldviews in conflict. All right, see you guys next time.